So I'm Nancy, I'm 52, I'm a lesbian, pronouns are she and her. I live in Brighton with my wife and my 2 kids and my 2 dogs. A little less than a year ago, I was diagnosed with a kind of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's called diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. I'm an academic lawyer, not a litigator, and my whole career has been kind of human rights, social justice work. So I've worked on kind of migration and on children's rights, worked for a very long time on poverty. Most recently, the last kind of 5 years maybe, I've worked on LGBTQ+ rights specifically. So I was CEO at Stonewall, which is kind of the UK's kind of best known, I guess, LGBTQIA rights organisation. I was Executive Director at DIVA, which is an LGBTQIA women and non-binary people's media organisation and now charity. And I do a lot of activism. So I'm a Director of Trans Solidarity Alliance, so I do a lot of activism, particularly, I guess, around trans rights in the UK as well. So yeah, I'm a human rights baby. So it's kind of hard to quantify or to speak about the impact that cancer has had on my life. And part of that is that people have such a weird reaction to cancer. And so when I'm talking about it, I'm trying to self-edit so that I don't make people weirder about cancer. But here's some of the things, I think. It is incredibly traumatic being diagnosed with cancer, being treated with cancer. For me, I think the most traumatizing thing is that I'm a mother. And so having to sort of sit with the idea that my children, who are not adult, were terrified, but also might end up losing a parent, was incredibly, incredibly distressing to contemplate. So there's just a huge amount of trauma, I think, particularly trauma when you look at your own loved ones. So it's not, in a sense, being sick is the easiest bit of it, I think. And then there's other things that are kind of more ambiguous, I guess is the right way to put it. So, and I remember I used to think that the kind of immediate 2 days after being told you've definitely got cancer, we don't know what type, when you kind of, it is just like falling down a lift shaft. There's no other way to describe it. Just everything kind of explodes. And I remember looking out of my bedroom window down the hill. We've got this lovely view of kind of the hill down to the sea in Brighton. And I remember saying to myself, I've not had my last good day. And so kind of one part of that idea about how does your kind of professional identity kind of intersect with cancer world, I found myself thinking a lot about this idea of a vanishing point, because my life was so small. Like I was so ill, I couldn't leave the bed. I was like literally attached by oxygen to the bed and really frail, really physically frail and really scared, terrified. And it was like I was disappearing to a vanishing point. And it kind of gave me the answer to that question, like what is left when everything else goes? And there were really only 2 things left for me. I loved my people, just to my bones, my children and my wife and the people that are important to me. And I believe what I believe. So I was literally doing activism on a kind of laptop in my kind of hospital bed, not because I felt I had to, not because I was trying to pretend things were okay, but because actually I believe what I believe. So that's not really the sort of professional version of me as a human rights person, but the values part of it was part of what was left when everything else went. The sort of flip side to that was, you go from this state where you're like, I'm very confident personally and professionally. I'm talk about queer issues all the time, personally and professionally, into this world where you have like zero power and you're sort of at the mercy of people who you don't know in very visceral physical ways. And it's an incredibly heteronormative world. So kind of you are stripped away all of your coping mechanisms and you're plunged into this world that thinks that, you know, girls look a certain way and are a certain way and are married to a certain kind of person and have a certain kind of family. And it feels really unsafe and really odd and really alienating. And so my kind of, the sort of other aspect of my trip into cancer world was to sort of feel, it felt like going back in time to the 1950s or something for me. It was this kind of quite dizzying experience of being subjected to heteronormativity and cisnormativity dialed up to 10, but in an environment where you can't, but it feels incredibly high risk to push back or to challenge or to be different. So kind of being someone that's a professional LGBT rights activist and going into that world felt just wild, very, very shocking, very shocking.